Hello everyone, I am Gayatri Nimawat. On the third day of our presentation, I am going to deal with the topic marginalization in Coetzee 4. These are my personal information. This is the table of content. These are the topic on which I am going to deal with. Introduction. Marginalization is the process of being excluded or pushed to the margins of society. It can take many forms, such as social, economic, political, and cultural marginalization. James Coetzee's novel Foe is set in South Africa during the colonial era, and it explored the ways in which indigenous people, women, and the voiceless were marginalized and oppressed by the European colonists. Coetzee portrays marginalization in four through his characterization of Friday, Susan Barton, and the narrative perspective. Friday is a castaway who is enslaved by Susan Barton and forced to tell his story. Susan Barton is a woman who is also marginalized in colonial society because of her gender and her social status. The narrative perspective in the novel is constantly shifting between Friday and Susan Barton, which allows Coetzee to explore the different ways in which each character experiences marginalization. This is about Zane Coetzee. John Maxwell Coetzee was born in Cape Town in 1940. He was the African person, but in his family there were the language was speaking is English, and he won Nobel Prize as well as Booker Prize, and he has as good acclaim as anyone to be the most significant living author in England. English, a language about which he has lately grown ambivalent. James Coetzee has spent half a century engaged with the biggest question of human reason and human dignity, but his novels are not what you had called grand. They are sleek, unadorned, unfailingly precise. Most stop out at 200 pages or so. The sentences have been napped to their sharpest. Stylistically, his novels are quite brisk. Morally, they are heavyweights. Then, what is marginalization? According to Iris Young, marginalization is perhaps the most dangerous form of oppression. In this article, the in this book, Young tried to give 5 facts of oppression in which he tried to define the marginalization. He A whole category of people in explained from useful participation in social life, potentially then subject to severe material deprivation and even extermination. The material deprivation is the major concept of marginalization in Young's view. The material deprivation, marginalization often cause certainly is unjust, especially in society where others have plenty. Contemporary advanced capitalist socialists in principle have acknowledged the injustice of material deprivation caused by marginalization and have taken some steps to address it by providing welfare and payment and services. The continuance of this welfare state is by no means assured, and in most welfare state societies, especially the United States, benefits are not sufficient to eliminate a large scale suffering and deprivation. Material deprivation is the most common result of marginalization when looking at how unfairly material resources such as food and shelter are disparate in society. Along with material deprivation, Young also says that marginalized are individually are also excluded from service programs and policies. Then marginalization info. James Coetzee's novel Four, the theme of marginalization is intricately explored through the lens of both cultural and gender-based subaltern identities. The central character, Susan Barton, who has been shipwrecked on the island much like Robinson Crusoe, represents the marginalized other in a world dominated by men and colonialist ideology. This novel reopened two English texts in which the early 18th century tried to constitute marginality. First is Daniel Defoe's Robinson Crusoe, and then Daniel Defoe's Roxana. In Crusoe, the white man marginalized in the forest encounter Friday the savage in the margin. In Roxana, the individuality female infiltrates nascent bourgeois society. In Coetzee's novel, a double gesture is performed. In the narrative, Roxana begins her construction of the marginal where she is, but when her project approaches fulfillment, the text step in and remind us that Friday is in the margin as such, the wholly other. And this dialogue shows the marginalization of women in the text Roxana when she says that the very nature of the marriage contrast what in was in short nothing but giving up liberty, estate, authority, and everything to the man, and the woman was indeed a mere woman ever after, that is to say, a slave. Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak tried to define marginalization in four with three concepts that marginalization of women, marginalization of voiceless, and marginalization in narrative function. So, when we see about the marginalization of women, the narrator of four is an English a woman named Susan Barton, who want to father her story into history with Mr. Foe's help. Coetzee has trouble negotiate a gendered position. He and the text strain to make the trouble noticeable. This text will not defend itself against the undecidability and discomfort of imaging a woman. Defoe's idea of a woman dilemma here thematized as Foe's problem in writing the story. At first, Susan Barton imagines as a rejection. When she say, I write my letters, I seal them, I drop them in the box. One day, when we are departed, you will tip them out and glance through them. Better had there been only Crusoe and Friday. You will murmur to yourself, better without the woman. Yet, where would you be without woman? Could you have made up Crusoe and Friday and the island? Think not. Many strength you have, but invention is not one of them. Then, when Susan meets Tufo, he tried to question her on the details of the plot. It is a long series of questions, and Foe supplies the answers himself and tells her the structure of his storytelling, the female castaway. We therefore have five parts in all: the loss of the daughter, the quest for the daughter in Brazil, abandonment of the quest, and the adventure of the island, assumption of the quest by the daughter, and reunion of the daughter with the mother. It is thus that we make up a book: loss, then quest, then recovery, beginning, then middle, then end. As to novelty, this is lent by the island episode, which is properly the second part of the middle, and by the reversal in which the daughter takes up the quest abandoned by her mother. The island is not a story in itself, said for gently. So this was the marginalization of women. Now let's see the marginalization of voiceless. Here the character Foe, Friday, is the marginalized slave, and Friday's tongue has been cut off by slaver, says Robinson. Susan want to know him to give him a speech, and in this entire text, we find that Susan want to give him voice, but and give him voice. Susan is at her wits end. That too is a margin. Susan is also a margin as a gender, and Friday also marginalized as voiceless, and through this dialogue, the story of Friday's tongue is a story unable to be told, or unable to be told by me. That is to say, many stories can be told of Friday's tongue, but the true story is buried within Friday, who is mute. The true story will not be heard till by art we have found a means of giving voice to Friday. This shows the give a voice. Then, as we see that Susan is marginalized by virtue of her gender, and Friday is marginalized due to his race. In this context, Alec Bohemer argued that the violet body of the colonized speaks, representing its own silence. The colonized body speaks, uttering its wound, its negates its muted condition. Friday's body speaks despite its silence and signifies beyond words, while attempts to give it a voice end up in appropriation of its own voice. It is normal for such a body to signify alternatively. Then marginalizes through narrative technique. It is interesting to notice what coexists between the inside margins of the first and second days of the writing lesson. While Foe and I spoke, Friday filled his slate with open eyes, each set upon a human foot, row upon row of eyes, unwalking eyes. Give me the slate, Friday, I commanded, whereupon, instead of obeying me, Friday put three fingers into his mouth and wet them with spittle and rubbed the slate clean. Here Susan also want to guardian over Friday, and through her dialogue that how can Friday know what freedom means when he barely knows his name. Through this dialogue we can see this concept, and it is still in my power to guide and amend, above all to withhold. By such means do I still endeavor to be father of my story. Through this dialogue we can say that Foe and Susan Barton copulate for the first time. Then this all is about marginalization, and we find that marginalization from mothering, authoring, giving voice to the native in the text, a white male South African writer engaging in Susan's inscription outside the text. Uh, and then however lead to a scrupulous differentiate politic depend on where you are. Coetzee text can be taught as correcting Defoe's imagination of the marginal in comradeship, reinscribing the white woman as agent as a symmetrical double of the author, situating the politics of overdetermination as a aporia, halting before Friday scenes for him here now, and for Susan Barton and for Daniel Foe. That is the arbitrary name of the withheld limit. So then an example, a narrative voice and the paradox of the unspeakable in James Coetzee and his disgrace. This story is about one woman and one man, David, and both the woman was raped by someone, and the David wants to give voice to this girl, and like in the story of. Four, we find that Susan wanted to give voice to the Friday, and through this dialogue we can understand that how they she wanted to speak but she cannot speak, and to David, Lucy's refusal to speak her story is an admission of a feeling of white guilt for apartheid. He argued that she must speak about her rape because otherwise she will be indicating that she is seeking salvation through acceptance of her account of attack. David struggled to negotiate control over the symbolic meaning of Lucy's rape because to him her rape is part of his fall into disgrace. He regarded is as his own violation. Lucy's protest this, admonishing her father, you behave as if everything I do is part of the story of your life. You are the main character, I am the minor character who doesn't make an appearance until halfway through. Well, contrary to what you think, people are not divided into major and minor. I am not a minor, I have a life of my own, just as important to me as yours is to you, and in my life I am the one who makes the decisions. So, in conclusion, Four by James Coetzee explored the intricacies of marginalization through the lenses of gender and colonialism, reimagining the narratives of colonial literature. It emphasized the complexity of giving voice to the marginalized and highlight the power dynamics in storytelling. Coetzee challenges the idea of fully capturing the history of the empire and the lost voices of the marginalized. Through Suzanne's quest to give voice to Friday, the novel reveals the enduring complexity of marginalized voice. It urges us to confront the multifaceted nature and marginality and the roles of the marginalized as both victims and guardians at the margins of history. These are my work citation. Thank you.